Now, the last year or so has been the stormiest for industrial relations in decades, especially in the public sector, with governments pitted against doctors, nurses, teachers and others over pay, with some pretty bitter rows and strikes for months. Now, the dispute with rail workers is still ongoing. It's made a household name of Mick Lynch, the boss of the RMT rail union, who's become for some would say a pantomime villain, others would say star media performer and thorn in the side of the government. I guess it depends what side of the fence you're on. He's also been one of our most interesting guests, so I know I always enjoy interviewing. Joins us now. Thank you very much for being on the programme today. Good to have you with us. So the government settles with quite a few public sector bodies now. No strikes, for example, in schools we're expecting. How's it going with you?
Well, no contact. They seem to pick out the RMT as a special category where they can't negotiate on a reasonable basis. We're available to talk to them, but I don't think I've met a government minister since January. And even the employers now have stopped negotiating. So I don't know whether they're waiting for all this other stuff to be cleared out of the way. We don't know if there's going to be settlement yet. I think they're out for referendum and consultation with their members. We'll see. They've certainly offered the others more than we've been offered. There's no strings attached to those deals. We've got to accept a whole host of change and dilutions to our terms and conditions and job losses. 2,300 redundancies were announced last week, just in station staff. So it's a very tough road ahead of us, but we're determined to keep our campaign going. And the public now is out in support to save our station staffing and ticket offices. And we're getting a massive reaction to that.
Do you think that part of the reason why the government hasn't met you again is because they see this as the final offer that they've offered you? I think it's, am I right in saying, pay rises of 5% and 4%, more for the lower paid, no compulsory redundancies? That's it?
Well, they've withdrawn the no compulsory redundancies because they've put it into the companies. There's not national negotiations going on at the moment. I don't know if we'll get back to that. But they've got into each of the 14 train operating companies and there are no guarantees. They've issued 2,300 redundancy notices just in one group last week. So what they've said in the Commons is not true. The minister stood up last week and said there'd be no redundancies. That is a complete falsehood. I've got the letters in my office that inform me of nearly a quarter of station staff being made redundant. So we're there to meet them. If they want to meet us, we'll meet up with them again and we'll look for an agreement. This has never been just about pay, as we've been saying consistently. It's about cutbacks, de-staffing and ensuring that the private sector operators maintain their profits as they have done.
Do you think, or do you accept that there needs to be some efficiency savings and reform when it comes to the railways? The government would say, look, taxpayers have spent £31 billion on the rail industry in the last 2 years. That's £1,000 per household. Many of those houses don't even use them.
Well, we always deal with change. There's not been a period in the history of the railway there's not been changed, and we will deal with any reasonable proposals. But what we want them to be is agreed, not imposed on top of us. And that's where the difficulty comes. They set down an agenda where our members must give up their contracts of employment, have them chopped to bits and go on basically the gig economy and versions of it. We can't accept that. We've negotiated these contracts over decades and we want to maintain them. And that's what most people in Britain want now. Most people in all sorts of industries, including this one, funnily enough, are furious about the way they're treated, put on casualised basis, put on agency work, 0 hours contracts and all the rest of it. That's what we're fighting for, a better balance in the workplace, and we hope we can get that coming forward through our actions, but through political change in the future as well.
Political change in the future, you're a bit optimistic about a Labour government, then you think it could be different? Well,
I'm optimistic that we'll get rid of this government. This government's got to go. It's stumbling
Keir Starmer
around.
hasn't said that much when it comes to you guys either, though, has he?
Well, he has. He has at the TUC Congress. His ministers have said that there'll be a new deal for workers.
Have they said what that is going to be, though?
Yes, they have. They've set that out in quite a lot of detail. There's at least 100 points of change in the new deal for workers, from contracts of employment, repealing some of the anti-trade union laws, giving a better deal for trade unions, but also giving a better deal for individual workers. Now, we want that to happen. We want these anti-trade union laws to be abolished. We want better funding for the public services. That's going to be tough. But if he delivers what he said he's going to deliver, then that will be an improvement for most working people in this country.
You started striking, I think, just over a year ago. At what point do you call it a day?
Well, when we've got an agreement.
So you could strike for another year then, if you don't get an agreement?
We don't want to be on strike on another occasion. We'd much rather get agreements in both London Transport and on the National Railway.
But you'll keep
we've got our
striking
two parties to get to it. Yeah, we will keep going in our campaign until we get a document that our members want to support in a referendum.
No matter how long it takes?
Well, I didn't want it to take this long, but we haven't got the agreement. So our members have renewed the mandate recently. and there's strike action planned. If somebody wants to come to us with an offer that can get rid of that strike action so that we can consider a new deal, then we'll take that on board.
Now, it's been quite a year for you. I mean, you're basically famous now. What's that like?
Well, it's a bit, look at state of me, Sophie. It's a bit weird, somebody like me being getting a profile. I'm not interested in that. Can
you still go down your local pub without being recognised?
No, I can't go anywhere without being recognised.
Why, what sort of thing happens then?
People want selfies, people want to shake my hand. I don't get any abuse, really, going about the place. Maybe I do online. But most people say, even if they don't entirely agree with us, they respect the stand we've taken, that our members have taken, and they understand that somebody's put in a slightly different argument to the professional politicians, which I think is a bit of a shame. And it's a shame that Labour and others can't show that they're distinct from the kind of consensus that's got us into this trouble, where working people are struggling. The cost of living crisis seems to be ignored by the political class to a certain extent.
And you put everyone in that? Labour,
yes, I do. I don't think Labour's doing enough. We will be critical of Labour when they don't do the right stuff, and we'll be supportive on the occasions that they do. But at the minute, I think Keir Starmer and his team have got to show some clear water, some clear red water, between themselves and the Daily Mail and the Telegraph, and themselves and the Conservatives. And at the minute, many people can't spot the difference, and that's a shame for somebody who's probably as talented as Keir Starmer is. He's got to show that he's on the side of working people and progressive politics, and I don't think we're seeing that at the moment.
Why don't you think you're seeing it? Do you think it's because he is focused on winning the election, or because he just doesn't really believe it?
He's got 5, what are they, missions? Nobody knows what they are. Nobody understands them. Nobody could remember the 5 missions. He should be saying something about workers' rights. He should say stuff about funding the NHS, National Care Service, looking after people who are struggling in the housing market, council houses for the masses, controlling rents, addressing all sorts of stuff about what's going to happen in the imbalance in our society. He's not saying any of that. He won't dare mention the word socialism. I want to hear that word mentioned frequently, and I want to see a redistribution of wealth in our society, because there are a lot of very wealthy people and there are too many very poor people. And now the people in the middle are being squeezed as well, with rents and mortgages skyrocketing. He doesn't seem to be on the side of the people of this country. I think he could be on the side of the people of this country, but he's got to show it to us before the election. OK, there you go. That's a rallying call, if ever you heard one. Mick Lynch, thank you very much. Good to have you on the programme today.